Rose nearly drowned. Her father had passed away, her mother remarried, and her cousin had taken over the family estate. Just when she thought she would die in despair, a man burst through the water, grabbed her hand, and told her, "Don't be afraid," before pulling her to safety. 3 years later, Rose had become a rising entertainment star. Her manager was scolding her. "All the investor did was touch your thigh, and you smashed his head in. Now, you're only getting offers for low-budget films." But Rose was indifferent, stating that only one man was allowed to touch her thigh, the man who had saved her 3 years ago, Jack. However, when she saw Jack again, his first words to her were, "You're late. Run 3 laps as punishment." Damn that rescue team leader. Rose cussed him inwardly. But as soon as she saw Jack, she couldn't help but get close to him, pulling out a pocket watch. Jack recognized it as the one he'd lost 3 years ago. Rose, however, tucked the watch into her chest, running her fingers over Jack's torso and teasing him to come get it if he wanted it. In response, Jack immediately grabbed her wrist, but Rose took the opportunity to ask, "Do you have a girlfriend?" leaving Jack momentarily speechless. After Rose turned to leave, Jack finally exhaled, while Rose limped away, painfully massaging her legs after the run. The next day, Rose discovered Jack gently stroking another woman's head, mistakenly thinking he had a girlfriend. However, the woman was actually a fan of Rose and told her that Jack was a benefactor of their orphanage, and still single. Elated by this news, Rose decided to renew her pursuit of Jack. She grabbed Jack's hand and playfully compared it to her face, teasing, "Your hand is so big. You must hit hard. I'd like to try it." Jack, irritated, turned and walked away. That evening, Rose sent her manager a picture of her injured waist, ranting about Jack's harsh training. Unexpectedly, she sent it to the wrong person, Jack. She was mortified, but Jack simply replied, "Use medicinal wine." When Rose returned to her room, she noticed a bottle of medicinal wine on her table, left by Jack. She asked him, "How does my waist look?" Jack's teammates, seeing the photo, joked, "That's a slim waist, just like Rose's." Jack shot them a glare, then transformed into a demon drill instructor, ordering them to run 20 kilometers overnight with full gear. When Rose delivered a birthday gift to her friend Steve, paparazzi snapped photos, leading to dating rumors. Rose wanted to explain to Jack, only to find she had been blocked by him. Determined, she went to find Jack in person, only to stumble upon a nurse about to confess her feelings to him, and Jack had even invited the nurse out. Heartbroken, Rose left, but Jack stopped her and asked why she was there. Rose stubbornly lied, saying she was there to give a gift to one of his teammates. After she left, the nurse confronted Jack, asking if he had rejected her because of Rose. Jack ignored her and instead called out to his teammate hiding in the bushes, angrily throwing the gift at him. The next day, Jack told Rose to button up her shirt. Rose provocatively responded, "With a body this good, of course I'm showing it off. Besides, I'm not your girlfriend, so it's none of your business." Jack calmly replied, "I don't have a girlfriend." His words reignited Rose's determination. On the bus, Rose and the nurse made a bet. Whoever could sit next to Jack would win. Rose pretended to be carsick, convincing Jack's teammate to give up the front seat. She successfully sat beside Jack and even got some motion sickness pills from him. Rose wasn't carsick at all and took the opportunity to touch Jack's hand, playfully asking him to feed her the pill. Jack sighed, poking her forehead and warning her to keep her distance. Rose boldly countered, "If you truly feel nothing for me, I'll leave you alone." Jack didn't answer directly, and as Rose turned away, she flashed a triumphant smile at the nurse behind her. Rose and Jack later went to a rural area to assist the elderly. When Rose saw a local thug bullying a woman, she kicked him down with one swift move. But when Jack arrived, Rose immediately pretended to be weak, claiming she had twisted her ankle and hurt her hand. The thug was bewildered but backed off when Rose whispered, "If you want to live, shut up." Jack, without a word, picked Rose up and carried her to a room. Back in Jack's room, as he was changing, Rose accidentally walked in, faced with Jack's perfectly sculpted body. How could Rose resist snapping a photo? Furious, Jack lunged at her, but just then, Rose's nose started bleeding, and she quickly stuffed her phone into her dress. Jack was left speechless, while Rose, seeing him flustered, pressed closer, forcing Jack to flee the room. Late at night, Rose had a meeting with some investors, but they made inappropriate advances. Rose slapped one of them hard, then hid in a warehouse. Heartbroken, she called Jack, crying that she had no one to back her up. As soon as Jack heard her sobbing, he asked where she was. Rose sarcastically replied, Even if I told you, you wouldn't come." Yet the next moment, Jack was right in front of her. Overcome with emotions, she hugged him. Furious, he kicked the investor on his way out. Jack's friend, watching in disbelief, asked, "Who the hell managed to get the second son of the Fu family to take action?" Jack casually told his friend to look after Rose in the future, then left with her. When Rose woke up in the car, she boldly asked Jack, "Can I kiss you?" Jack bluntly refused. Unfazed, Rose pouted and said she was hungry. Jack asked what she wanted to eat, and Rose cheekily replied, "I want to eat you." Jack, exasperated, bought her a pancake instead. Rose took a bite and mischievously offered Jack a taste. Jack sternly said, "Stop trying to seduce me." Rose teased him back, calling him a coward, and kissed him goodbye before leaving. When Rose heard that Jack had a rescue mission the next day, she stayed up all night at a temple, praying for a protective talisman. Bruised and exhausted, she handed it to Jack, embarrassed to urge him to leave. Just as she turned away, Jack's strong hands pulled her back. Rose found herself pressed against Jack's chest as he kissed her passionately. Still reeling from the kiss, she turned to her assistant, asking, "Did that really just happen?" Her assistant nodded furiously, confirming it had. Rose's good mood evaporated when she saw her sister, Amy, who smugly bragged about stealing Rose's endorsement deal. The next second, Rose yanked Amy by the hair and gave her a thorough lesson. Enraged, Amy planned to set Rose up with a scandal involving the endorsement company's boss by arranging for paparazzi to catch Rose at his home. However, the photos ended up revealing that Rose was simply trying on the boss's wife's latest designs, and the paparazzi's shots accidentally exposed trade secrets instead. To top it off, Rose produced evidence that Amy had orchestrated the whole setup. Realizing she'd been caught, Amy's mother begged Rose for forgiveness, claiming to be pregnant with Amy's father's child. Furious, Rose confronted her father's former subordinates, asking if they had uncovered the truth behind his death. One of them handed her a cufflink from the driver responsible for the accident, a custom piece from the Fu family. While on set, Rose playfully called Jack via video chat, saying she wished she could be a water droplet slipping down his chest. Knowing she was up to her usual antics, Jack hung up immediately. Moments later, her assistant walked in, drenched and clutching a water kettle. Rose learned that her assistant had been mistreated by another actress, which infuriated her. Rose marched straight to the actress, smashed her water kettle, and demanded an apology. The crew, fed up with the actress's diva behavior, sided with Rose, forcing the actress to begrudgingly apologize. Rose's assistant was deeply grateful. Coincidentally, Jack was in Rose's city for a mission, and Rose decided to confess her feelings by sending him a letter and a kiss. That night, she dressed up and waited for Jack at a restaurant, telling him that if he liked her, he should come. But Jack never showed. Heartbroken, Rose went to find him, only to see him being hugged by another woman. Her heart sank, believing Jack didn't care for her at all. Her friend Steve comforted Rose by feeding her a piece of fruit, and Jack, seeing this, was consumed with jealousy. At that moment, a fugitive took Rose hostage, and Jack and Steve immediately rushed to her rescue. To Jack's surprise, Rose knocked the fugitive out cold before he could make a move. Steve hurried over, squeezing Rose's cheek in concern. Jack, burning with jealousy, later caught up with Rose and furiously wiped the spot Steve had touched. Just then, the fugitive's accomplice appeared, and Jack, stepping in to shield Rose, was shot. When Jack woke up, he found Rose not by his bedside, but by Steve's. Steve, noticing their awkward tension, tried to help. Jack's teammate told him Steve had sent Rose 999 roses, making Jack so angry he threw a pillow at him before rushing out. Just as Rose decided to ignore Jack completely, he dragged her into a corner. Jack explained that he hadn't shown up that night because of a sudden emergency mission, and that the letter she'd left for him had fallen into the water, smudging the ink. Determined to make it up to her, Jack arranged a dinner at the same restaurant and pulled her into his arms. Furious, Rose asked, "What do you take me for? Why are you treating me like this?" Jack remained silent. As Rose turned to leave, Jack finally said, "Because I like you." Hearing this, Rose broke into a smile, kissing Jack without a word and throwing herself into his embrace. One day, Rose called Jack and his teammates. Overhearing the conversation, they teased them. When Rose finally reached Jack, she complained that he hadn't contacted her in 2 weeks, and she had even worn Victoria's Secret just for him. Jack immediately hung up. That night, he showed up on set, barging into her room. Rose excitedly hugged him, only to realize he was just there to fix her signal. Turns out the reason she couldn't reach him was because her signal had been bad. After installing the equipment, Jack stopped her from leaving, and Rose, suddenly shy, seemed completely different from the flirtatious vixen on the phone. Jack teased her, calling her the real coward, and noticed the bruises on her wrist, gently asking what had happened. Rose mischievously placed his hand on her waist, pouting, "My waist is hurt too. Want to check it out?" Jack, seeing she was back to her usual antics, quickly left. Rose's grandfather's 70th birthday arrived, and she returned home for the celebration, only to be harassed by Amy. Amy claimed that the painting Rose had brought was a fake and that she had the real one. However, the appraiser confirmed that Rose's painting was genuine, because it was purchased a few days ago for $50 million by none other than the second son of the Fu family. Rose was stunned. Jack had given her this painting. Could he really be the second son of the Fu family? Before she could think further, her cousin appeared, drugged Rose and attempted to assault her, with her mother complicit in the plan. Fortunately, Jack arrived in time to save her. At that moment, the usually strong Rose couldn't hold back her tears any longer. Jack, heartbroken, stayed by her side, and after Rose fell asleep, he went to give her cousin a well-deserved beating. When Rose woke up, she heard the sound of water from the bathroom and once again saw Jack's naked body. Before things got more awkward, the doorbell saved her. It was her cousin, who humbly apologized and said he would turn himself in. Rose was now more suspicious than ever about Jack's true identity. Sensing her emotions, Jack smiled and said, "If you want the stars in the sky, I'll get them for you." Rose, moved, said, "My dad once said the same thing." Jack joked, "Then you can call me Daddy." Rose angrily hit him, but Jack just pulled her into a kiss. Afterward, Jack discovered Rose's assistant being bullied and stepped in to help, leaving the assistant blushing with gratitude. Steve invited Rose to a Fu family banquet, and Rose saw this as an opportunity to investigate her father's death. She sneaked into the Fu family patriarch's room and discovered a cufflink identical to the one from her father's killer. Just as she panicked, someone entered the room. Hiding, Rose saw that it was Jack, who was indeed the second son of the Fu family. Enraged, Rose believed Jack's family was responsible for her father's death and stormed out. The next day, Rose and Jack had a live stream together. During the broadcast, Jack said, "I have a girlfriend, but she hasn't responded to me lately. What should I do?" Rose, unsure of how to reply, was interrupted by news that her grandmother had been hospitalized. Without hesitation, Jack drove her to the hospital and even arranged for the country's top doctor to treat her grandmother. This made Rose's feelings for Jack even more complicated. Jack held her, gently reassuring her not to overthink things. After her grandmother recovered, Jack brought a bouquet of roses. Rose coldly refused to accept them, but Jack casually said, "Don't flatter yourself," and gave the flowers to her grandmother, wishing her well. While her grandmother adored Jack, Rose found herself torn between love and hate, unable to reconcile her emotions. Jack, sensing this, quietly left. Soon after, there was news that a man had been in a car accident outside. Panicked, Rose ran out, only to find Jack safe and sound behind her. Furious, she hit him a few times, scolding him for playing such a cruel joke. In that moment, Rose realized just how important Jack was to her, and she decided to stop running from their relationship. The two reconciled, much to her grandmother's delight. That night, Rose brought Jack a blanket, flirting with him as she traced circles on his chest, boldly declaring, "We're at my grandma's place now. You wouldn't dare do anything." As soon as Rose turned to drink some water, Jack suddenly grabbed her waist and lifted her onto the table. Nervous, Rose quickly said she wanted to go to bed. Jack tenderly cupped her face, kissing her deeply. Rose tried to resist, but Jack picked her up, threw her onto the bed, and asked if she was sure about sharing it with him that night. Regaining some composure, Jack said if she didn't want to, he could leave. Just as he was about to get up, Rose grabbed his collar, pulling him back, boldly stating, "I'm not saying no, but I'm in control tonight." With that, she kissed Jack again, and the two spent a passionate night together. At a party, Jack accidentally drank a friend's special drink and was later told it had aphrodisiac effects. Annoyed, Jack returned to his hotel room to rest, while his friend sent someone to get Rose. But the person who showed up was Rose's assistant, dressed up to look like her, confessing her love to Jack and even trying to seduce him. Luckily, Jack immediately recognized that she wasn't Rose and pushed her away. Rose, coincidentally passing by, witnessed the scene and promptly fired her assistant. The next day, the assistant held a press conference, accusing Rose of mistreatment and fabricating all sorts of malicious rumors. In response, Rose and Jack publicly confirmed their relationship, revealing the assistant's attempted seduction of Jack. Infuriated, the assistant sneered, "There's no way a rich guy like Jack will stick with someone like Rose forever." Before she could finish, Jack kissed Rose in front of the media, silencing her with his actions. At this point, Rose's ex-boyfriend saw the news and came looking for her, hoping to rekindle their relationship. Jack, overcome with jealousy, furiously confronted him. Rose, confused by Jack's sudden anger, went out drinking with Steve to vent. This only made Jack more upset. He found Rose, threw her over his shoulder, and took her home. Rose explained that she had long since moved on from her ex, and Jack finally relaxed, pulling her into a tight embrace. The next day, Rose couldn't hide the hickeys on her neck. Her manager sighed, "Jack really has no self-control." Rose giggled and teased, "He's worse off than I am." Her manager could only shake his head in resignation. However, not long after, Jack was involved in a serious accident during a mission. Worried sick, Rose rushed to the hospital, only to learn that the person who needed amputation wasn't Jack but his teammate. Still, Jack looked grim. He revealed to Rose that the accident wasn't a simple mishap. Someone was deliberately trying to kill them. Fearing for Rose's safety, Jack suggested that they break up, but Rose kissed him firmly, insisting that she would never be a burden to him. No matter what dangers lay ahead, she was prepared to face them and reassured him that he could do his job without worry. Rose soon discovered that Jack's teammate's girlfriend was connected to her ex-boyfriend. Determined to protect Jack's teammate from harm, Rose met with her ex to warn him not to mess with others' relationships. He, in turn, offered a deal. To achieve her goal, Rose agreed and arrived at his hotel late at night. Jack, hearing about it, rushed to the hotel, ready to break down the door, only to be pulled back by none other than Rose herself. Laughing, Rose told Jack to enjoy the show. Moments later, the police burst into her ex's room, arresting him for solicitation. Only then did her ex realize that the woman in his arms wasn't Rose but a prostitute who bore a striking resemblance to her. Back at home, a weary Jack lay in Rose's lap to rest. Rose saw the news of her ex's arrest and couldn't help but giggle at her phone, waking Jack. He looked at her in exasperation, pleading, "Hold me." Rose realized that a sleepy Jack was surprisingly clingy, and her heart melted with sweetness. Soon, Rose and Amy both participated in a piano competition. Amy deliberately chose the same piece as Rose, intending to frame her for plagiarism. As expected, when Rose took the stage, the judges immediately questioned her about copying the music. Faced with such accusations, Rose remained calm and confidently presented evidence proving that Amy had stolen her composition years ago. Amy was utterly disgraced, and her reputation was ruined. At this time, Rose's stepfather learned that the key witness to the hit-and-run accident from years ago had returned to the country. Fearing his crimes would be exposed, he planned to flee with stolen gold. However, Jack had already set a trap, leading the police to capture the stepfather on the spot. It turned out that Rose's stepfather was the one responsible for her father's death. Even worse, he had deliberately misled Rose into believing the Fu family was behind the crime and had even plotted to harm Jack. When the truth finally came to light, Rose broke down in tears, throwing herself into Jack's arms, sobbing, "I have no family left." Jack held her tightly and whispered, "It's okay. I'll be your family now." In the end, the two got married, sealing their bond forever.